In BARD for Boat Builders Part 3, we're going to show boat builders additional techniques they can use to identify accidents involving their boats in public BARD. As before, we encourage boat builders to view our previous 6 episodes before viewing this one. What is BARD tutorial, BARD tour, BARD combined table, BARD basic query tutorial, boat builder episodes parts 1 and part 2. As you recall, we covered the very basic way to find most accidents involving a specific boat builder in part 1. In part 2, we began using some additional techniques. We'll be demonstrating more additional techniques in part 3. We will continue using our example of Malibu ski boats and towboats along with the 2018 BARD database. This combination provides several examples of other boat builders will find helpful in identifying their own accidents. We exported a spreadsheet of Malibu accidents at the end of part 1. We updated that same spreadsheet at the end of part 2. At this time, it contains 32 accidents. The top row contains the headings. We will update this spreadsheet again at the close of this episode. The plan is we're going to use information in the boat manufacturer, boat model, boat name, and redacted narrative columns in combination with some techniques we will reveal later to identify additional Malibu accidents in BARD. Now we're headed toward identifying other ways of spelling the boat builder's name, then searching the boat manufacturer's column for those names. We have identified a process by which to identify alternative boat builder names or variants of the spelling of the boat builder name. Step 1. Include known common misspellings. Number 2. Search for names that might be spelled as one or two words both ways. For example, Sea Ray with a space in it or not, and Bass Cat with a space in it or not. Number 3. Search for the name less the first letter. For example, for Bayliner, search for AYLINER. Sometimes the first letter is dropped during keyboard entry. Number 4. Interchange similar sounding vowels, such as MALIBU, Malibu, to MALABU. Number 5. Search for a shortened version of the full boat builder name, such as Bay for Bayliner, and review the rest of the results down through the correct spelling and beyond for A. Possible misspellings of the rest of the name, B. Correct spelling of the name, but in multiple words such as Bayliner Boats or Bayliner West. The search done back in Boat Builder Episode 1 will not find records with unanticipated words on the end of the boat builder name. 6. Learn by doing. As you encounter more spelling variants of your boat company name, write them down for future use. The slide you just saw on how to identify variants of boat builders' names, plus a worksheet along with many other support materials is available in our BARD tutorial support materials at PropellerSafety.com/propeller/BARD. Now back to spelling variants of Malibu's name. Using the processes discussed, we identified Malibu spelling variants. Number 1, ALIBU, where we dropped the first letter. Number 2, MALABU, where we interchanged the last vowel. Number 3, MALI, where we shorten the version up, where you can look nearby to see if other spellings are nearby there for Malibu. Part 3 will continue to use the Malibu 2 query we created in Part 2. We click on the boat manufacturer column header, then click on the A to Z tool to alphabetize the column. We pull down looking for Alibu, ALIBU. We find no Alibu. We pull down further looking for Malibu, MALABU. We find no Malibu spelled as MALABU. We see our last target, Mali, M-A-L-I, is right there, but it is the one we already found. You may recall our search for Mali is going to be a little different than the others. As we look for the shortened version, we're going to go ahead and look on down to the correct spelling of Malibu, through the listings of Malibu and out the other side to see if we find any listings of Malibu that have another word on the end of them, such as Malibu Boats. While we found no misspellings of Malibu, we did find 2 Malibu Boats Inc. listings at the end of the Malibu listings. One of them is a ride, which is short for V-Ride. You can see one of them 3 above it there. It's a Malibu model. The second one is an A24, which is actually an Axis boat. We've not found either of these boats before because if you look to the right, there's no MIC code there. There's no hull identification number. If you look a little further to the right, you would see another misspelling of Malibu there. This time it's Malibu, M-A-I-L-I-B-U. Next, we're going to pull to the left to find the BARD ID number for the Malibu Boats Inc. there listed with Ride, which is actually a V-Ride model. When we pull to the left, we find the accident to be BARD ID number UT-2018-0033. This concludes searching for Malibu spelling variants. Now the boat builder identifies 1 or 2 dominant model names that apply to many of its boats still in circulation. In the Malibu example, Response and Wakesetter are 2 model names Malibu might choose. Wakesetter is one of those names that might appear as 1 or 2 words. We will search for it both ways. We will start our search for the popular boat model names in the boat manufacturers column. We go to the boat manufacturer column, we click on the header, then we click on the A to Z tool to alphabetize the manufacturer column. Then we pull down looking for the model Response. We see no response. Then we pull down further, looking for the Wakesetter model, spelled either way. We find one Wakesetter. This entry has one of the MBZ MIC codes we found earlier. Note, it is the Malibu 23 LSV tied to the BARD ID ID 20180026 we identified earlier. This is another teaching moment. This record has 2 errors within the fields we are searching. First, they wrote Wakesetter in the boat manufacturer field instead of Malibu. Second, they wrote or mistranscribed MBZ as the MIC code in the hull ID column. This is an example of why a boat builder would use these additional techniques to make sure they identify as many of their accidents in public BARD as reasonably possible. This completes our search of the boat manufacturers column. Next, we are going to search the boat model column and then the boat name column for the dominant model names and variants and for the boat builder name. For each hit, we will make sure that record either has Malibu in its boat manufacturer column or MB2 as its MIC in its hull ID number column. If not, we will further investigate it for possible addition to our list of accidents. We begin by searching the boat model column for Malibu, Response, Wakesetter, and Wakesetter with a skip between Wake and Setter. Before we start, we click on the header and use the A to Z tool to make sure the column is alphabetical order. Then we pull down and begin searching for Malibu. We see 2 Malibus. One has a boat manufacturer name of Malibu and an MIC code for Malibu, so we found that one earlier. The second one is a kayak built by a different manufacturer with a different MIC code. We pull on down to search for Response. We see 2 responses. Both have Malibu as the boat builder name and MB2 for the MIC code, so we found them earlier. We pull on down to search for Wakesetter and Wakesetter with a skip in it. We find 3 Wakesetters. All 3 have Malibu as the boat builder name, so we found them earlier. This completes our search of the boat model column. Now we're going to search the boat vessel name column for dominant model names and for the boat builder name. We will be searching the column for Malibu, Response, Wakesetter, and Wakesetter with a space in it. Before we start, we click on the header and use the A to Z tool to make sure the boat vessel name column is in alphabetical order. Then we pull down and begin searching for Malibu. We see one Malibu. It is a kayak. We pull on down looking for a response. It's a good time to remind you that while these techniques may find a new accident now and then, normally you're going to come up blank. The like search technique already found most of them. For your accidents to still be out there, at least 2 specific errors or omissions had to occur in 2 specific data fields, which does happen from time to time. We see no response. We pull on down looking for Wakesetter. We see no Wakesetter. This completes our search of the boat vessel name column. We're going to search the redacted narrative column for the name of the boat builder. When the boat builder's name is found, determine if it refers to the boat builder or to something else with the same name. If it refers to the boat builder, verify the boat builder's name column contains the boat builder's name, or the hull ID number column contains the correct MIC code. Record the BARD ID number if the accident has not already been recorded. In this instance, we'll be searching for the redacted narrative for the boat builder name Malibu. We find redacted narratives are more likely to mention a boat manufacturer by name in a narrative if there was more than one vessel involved. For example, they might say the Bayliner boat ran into the stationary Malibu boat. If we encounter the word Malibu in a redacted narrative, we pull down one more row to see if it has the same BARD ID number or not. If it does, 2 or more vessels were involved in this accident. We pull to the right to make sure one of them has Malibu listed in its boat manufacturer column, or MB2 as its MIC code in its hull ID column. If not, we pull back to the left and record the BARD ID number if we have not already found it. If, when we pull down that one more row, we found a different BARD ID number, we pull back up to the first row, then pull to the right to check the boat manufacturer's column for Malibu, or the MIC code in the HIN column of MB2. If neither are found, we pull back to the left and write down the BARD ID number if we have not already found it. After we check each entry found by our search, we click Next, then move on to the next one. Okay, here we go. We begin by clicking on the header of the BARD ID column, then clicking on the A to Z tool to alphabetize the records by their BARD ID number. This way, if we have to stop for some reason, we can keep track of where we were. Then we click on the header of the redacted narrative column. Then we click on the Search tool, which is the magnifying glass above the word Find in the top menu. The Find and Replace tool comes up. We make sure we're on the Find tab. We enter our search word, Malibu. Then we look down to the search limiters, the grayed out fields. We want to search for or look in the current field, the redacted narrative, that's the current field, and we want our search to match any part of the field. You will likely have to use the Match drop-down list to select any part of the field. If we did not match any part of the field, our search would find nothing because there are likely no redacted narratives that are just one word long, and that word being Malibu. We make sure Match Case is not checked, otherwise the capitalization would have to match our search term. For the time being, we do not pay attention to the search fields as formatted checkbox. The system will make the correct decision for you. This has to do with the input mask, which you can study at some other time if you wish. Click on Find Next to the right of the search box. The system finds BARD ID AL-2018-0021 with Malibu in the redacted narrative. We pull down one more row to see if another boat was involved in the accident. The BARD ID numbers are different, so there's only one boat involved in this accident. We pull back up to that row, and then we pull to the right and find Malibu in the boat manufacturer column and MB2 as the MIC code. We found this accident earlier. We pull back to the redacted narrative column and click Find Next. We see BARD ID NC2018-0093 with a Malibu boat in it. We see this accident has 2 or more vessels in it. We pull to the right. One of these two vessels had Malibu in the manufacturer's column, so we recorded this accident earlier. Now we pull back to the redacted narrative column. We click on Find Next. We see BARD ID NC 2018-0146. We see this accident has two or more vessels in it. We pull to the right. We see one of the accidents has Malibu in the boat manufacturer's column and US-MB2 in the HIN column, so we found this accident earlier. Now we pull back to the redacted narrative column. We click on Find Next. We see BARD ID TX-2018-0198. We pull down and see the next BARD ID is different, which means this accident only involves a single vessel. We pull back up one row, then pull to the right. We see Malibu in the boat manufacturer column. We would have found this accident earlier when we searched for Malibu in the boat builder column. Now we pull back to the redacted narrative column. We click on Find Next. We see BARD ID number UT-2018-0048. We see this accident has two or more vessels in it. We pull to the right. We see one of these vessels is a Malibu. We found this accident earlier. Now we pull back to the redacted narrative column. We click on Find Next. We see BARD ID number UT-2018-0083. We see this accident has two or more vessels in it. We pull to the right. We see one of these vessels is a Malibu. We found this accident earlier. Now we pull back to the redacted narrative column. We click on Find Next. We see BARD ID WA-2018-0048. We see this accident has two or more vessels in it. We pull to the right. We see one of these vessels is a Malibu. We found this accident earlier. Now we pull back to the redacted narrative column. We click on Find Next. We see BARD ID WA-2018-0082. We pull down one more row. We see this accident only involved one vessel. We pull back up one row. Then we pull to the right to the boat manufacturer column. We see Malibu in the boat manufacturer column. We found this accident earlier. We pull back to the left to the redacted narrative column. We click on Find Next. The Find search goes back to the top of the redacted narrative column. This completes our search of the redacted narrative column for Malibu. We found no mentions of Malibu. They did not already have Malibu in their boat manufacturer's column, which we already searched, or had MB2 in their MIC code in the hull ID column, which we also already searched. Now we are going to summarize our findings from the 3 boat builder episodes. We found 29 Malibu accidents in Part 1 when we searched the boat manufacturer column for the boat builder name Malibu. We found 2 more Malibu accidents when we searched the hull ID number column for Malibu's MIC code of MB2, then checked to make sure Malibu appeared in the boat manufacturer column. If it did not, this would be a new accident for us. We found 2 new accidents this way in Part 2. We found 1 more Malibu accident in Part 2 when we searched for variants of Malibu's MIC code in the hull ID column. One of those entries did not have Malibu in the boat manufacturer column. In Part 3, we tried several additional approaches, each of which would require 2 errors, an error or a blank in the boat manufacturer column and an error or a blank in the hull ID number column. Our efforts in Part 3 found 1 more accident where there were words past the boat builder's name, such as Malibu Boats Inc. This brings us to a total of 33 Malibu accidents in the 2018 public BARD database. The ratio of our findings was in line with our expectations. We anticipate we will identify most of the accidents by searching the boat manufacturer's column for the name of the boat builder. However, there will be instances in which the boat builder's name is frequently misspelled, written as one or two words, or a particular boat model name is often used as the boat manufacturer's name. As expected, our second best finding tool was searching the hull ID number column for the boat builder's MIC code as a prefix. Searching for variants of the MIC code turned up one more accident. Our efforts in Part 3 were able to find one more accident. We are going to discuss the spreadsheet we exported at the close of Boat Builder Episode 1 for the final time. You may recall we removed 3 accidents from it at the end of Episode 1. 2 were paddle boats and 1 was an Access wakeboard boat, a separate, more economical product line built by Malibu. At the close of Episode 2, we updated the spreadsheet with BARD ID numbers and a brief reference to each of the additional 3 accidents we found in Episode 2. We added the accident we found in Part 3 to the spreadsheet, and we also labeled them as to what part different accidents were found in that we found later after the big search for just Malibu in Part 1. Before someone says Malibu Boats had 33 boating accidents in 2018, we refer them to our What is BARD tutorial, where we briefly explain 1. The requirements to be listed in BARD, 2. Some states do not allow their accidents to be reported in public BARD, including the state of California, which may have the largest population of Malibu boats, and 3. Most boat accidents are not reported. This concludes Part 3 of our ongoing series, How a Boat Builder Can Use BARD to Identify Accidents Involving Their Boats. Please leave any comments or suggestions below. Thanks for watching. Bye.